In 2008, the world looked balanced. If you looked at the ledger of global power, the European Union and the United States were economic twins. In fact, Europe was slightly ahead. The EU economy was valued at $16.3 trillion. The US was trailing at $14.7 trillion. That was the last time they were equals. Fast forward to today. The balance hasn't just shifted, it has shattered. The American economy has exploded to nearly $28 trillion. Europe, it has barely crawled to $18.6 trillion. In just 15 years, a gap has opened up that is roughly the size of the entire Chinese economy. The US economy is now nearly double the size of the EU's. How does a continent of highly educated, culturally rich, and historically dominant nations simply stop? The answer isn't just about energy prices or tax codes. It is about a fundamental psychological divergence. Europe has become a very wealthy, very intelligent aristocrat who is terrified of taking a single step lest they break something expensive. Europe has prioritized comfort over ambition. And in the 21st century, comfort is a slow-acting poison. Post-1945, Europe wasn't trying to build empires. It was trying to build a social paradise. And for a long time, it worked. Free healthcare, impossible to fire labor laws, 6-week vacations. It worked because the world was moving slowly. But the speed of history changed. Today, a startup needs a decision in a week, not a permit in 18 months. An investor needs flexibility, not a 400-page compliance manual. Innovation happens in the messy margins where you are allowed to be wrong, but Europe has engineered a society designed to prevent mistakes. And this is the paradox. By trying to eliminate risk, Europe has eliminated the possibility of a breakthrough. Take a look at the regulatory landscape. It is the clearest evidence of this paralysis. The European Union loves to regulate. Not just the big things, but everything. How to store data, how to hire, how to fire, how to test a beta product. In recent years, the EU has passed approximately 13,000 regulatory acts. The United States? Just 3,500. The result is a continent where companies spend more billable hours on compliance than they do on creation. It creates a bizarre reality where Europe is rushing to write the rulebook for artificial intelligence, the AI Act, while producing almost none of the actual AI platforms that run the world. Europe wants to act as the referee in a game played entirely by others, but regulation is just paper. The real barrier is in the mind. There is a profound cultural difference in how failure is processed on opposite sides of the Atlantic. In many European countries, bankruptcy is treated as a moral failing. If you go bust, you are a loser. If your business doesn't fly, you were foolish. Bankruptcy is a stain on your reputation that can bar you from future leadership roles. In the United States, bankruptcy is often viewed as a credential. It's scar tissue. The American investor asks, "You went bankrupt? Okay, what did you learn?" The ethos is, if you fail, you reset. Next time, you'll be better. This culture of restart creates a psychological safety net that allows for massive swings. Because the penalty for failure is low, the volume of attempts is high. And where there are more attempts, there are more breakthroughs. Europe creates a culture of fear. Smart people choose the stable job, the guaranteed salary, the quiet life. They don't stick their necks out, and the ones who do want to stick their necks out, they leave. This leads us to the demographic crisis. Europe is aging faster than it can refresh itself. The social contract, young workers paying for older retirees, is breaking because the math no longer works. But wait, isn't Europe known for migration? Yes, but look at how it works. Europe's migration strategy is driven by humanism without strategy. The narrative is about help, asylum, and protection. These are noble goals. But economically, the system is flawed. Europe accepts people faster than it can integrate them into the economy. It creates social dependency rather than economic dynamism. Now, look at the American model. The US doesn't ask, how can we help you? It asks, what can you do and how much are you willing to risk? It is brutal, but it is effective. There are no guarantees in America, no long vacations by default, no state waiting to catch you. But there is also no ceiling. This ruthlessness acts as a filter. It repels those seeking safety and attracts those seeking leverage. The results are written in the corporate registry. Elon Musk is an immigrant. The co-founders of Google are immigrants. Half of the top startups in Silicon Valley were founded by people not born in the US. Meanwhile, Europe is suffering from a double wound. It struggles to integrate newcomers, and simultaneously it bleeds its own brightest minds. Engineers, scientists, and entrepreneurs from Berlin, Paris, and Rome move to Austin, Boston, and Palo Alto. Why? Because they want access to capital, less bureaucracy, and a culture that celebrates scale. Europe invests in their education, and America reaps the dividends. 30% of European unicorns, startups worth over $1 billion, have moved their headquarters overseas, mostly to the US. This brain drain has resulted in a technological massacre. Europe has world-class universities and brilliant engineers, but when it comes to the companies that define the modern era, Europe is a ghost town. Of the top 50 technology companies in the world, only 4 are European. Let's look at artificial intelligence. This is the electricity of the 21st century. Since 2017, the United States has developed 73% of the world's foundation AI models. Europe, less than 5%. In 2023, the US invested $68 billion into AI. The EU invested $8 billion. In generative AI specifically, the gap is even more comical. $21.5 billion in the US versus $0.2 billion in the EU. Europe relies on American servers to run its digital life. Amazon, Google, and Microsoft control 65% of the European cloud market. Think about that. The digital infrastructure of an entire continent is owned by foreign corporations. Europe is becoming a digital colony. It provides the users and the data, while the US provides the platforms and captures the value. Why? Because European capital is cowardly. European pension funds sit on trillions of euros, but they invest less than 0.1% of their assets into venture capital. In the US, that number is exponentially higher. European investors ask, what if we lose? American investors ask, what if this goes 100 times? So, is this the end? Not necessarily. But the denial has to stop. Europe isn't poor. It isn't a ruin. It is a museum that still generates revenue. But wealth is not the same as dynamism. You can be rich and slowly dying at the same time. Based on current trends, we are looking at 3 scenarios for the future of Europe. Scenario 1, the open-air museum. Europe changes nothing. It remains a beautiful destination for tourism and retirement. But as its share of the global economy shrinks, its geopolitical voice whispers. It becomes a playground for the world's rich, managed by a shrinking workforce. Scenario 2, the digital colony. The US achieves total technological dominance. Europe becomes a pure consumer market. Europeans use iPhones, search on Google, watch Netflix, and their industries run on American AI. All the value add flows across the Atlantic. Scenario 3, shock therapy. This is the hardest path. Europe wakes up. It accepts that the social paradise needs a reality check. It creates a culture of restart for bankruptcy. It unlocks the trillions sitting in pension funds. It shifts migration policy to hunt for talent, not just offer asylum. It unifies its markets so a startup in Estonia can sell to Spain as easily as a startup in Texas sells to California. This path requires accepting more risk, more inequality, and less comfort. And that is the problem. No politician wins an election in Europe by promising less comfort. Europe didn't lose its way because it is bad or lazy. It lost its momentum because it fell in love with its own reflection. It chose security in a world that began to wildly reward risk. America is a place where you can fall hard. It is painful, It is unfair, and it is exhausting. But it is a place where you can fly. Europe is a place where the floor is high. You will never fall too far. But the ceiling is getting lower every single year. The question isn't whether Europe can change. The question is whether it is willing to sacrifice its sacred comfort to do so. Stay dangerous.